Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast today. I'm so excited to speak with Vinita Rashinkar today. Welcome to the podcast.
Namaste, Shireen. It's genuinely my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here and taking your time. I've been so inspired by your work, and I've listened to you so much lately when I have been working with the Dasa Mahavidyas and just diving into that. And I want to introduce you for those who haven't heard you or read any of your books. Vinita is a spiritual healer, writer, speaker, and wellness expert. She is the founding director of Chakra Yantra Foundation, a not-for-profit organization created the intention of bringing individuals and organizations together to improve health and well-being, cultivate spiritual knowledge, expand consciousness, and provide authentic information about Tantra and Sri Vidya, as outlined in the Hindu scriptures. And Vinita's first book, Sri Chakra Yantra, was published 2019, and the second book, Chakras, in 2020. Third book, Tantra Mantra and Yantra of Sri Vidya, in 2021. And then you have so many books. It's amazing. And you studied the principles of Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, chanting, chakras, and also stress management, spiritual counseling under various masters for 23 years. And I have so much. If you want to continue reading more, you have a beautiful website, vinitarashinkar.in. And we will talk about your journey here today, because I find it so interesting and beautiful. And it feels like such a transmission. So I would actually like to start with just asking you how you got into this journey yourself.
Thank you, Shireen. Originally, I was not meant to be on this path, perhaps, because I tried everything. I was a banker and a couple of other things before eventually landing up working with someone in the field of wellness. And it was from there that my interest in all things esoteric took off. And I got initiated into transcendental meditation. That was way back in 2003. And from there, it was just one long journey, which has brought me here. Today, I'm writing my 7th book. It should be out in about a couple of months. And sometimes when I look back, I can't make sense of how I got here. But the only thing I know is that when spirituality beckons, there is no not answering the door. You just have to go and open the door for it. And that's been my experience. I think it will resonate with a lot of people who, for a long period of time in their lives, have been completely cut away from spirituality and are just leading the material life. And then one day, spirituality comes knocking, and then they're taken from there on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm curious what tradition you grew up in and how you came into this tradition and lineage that you practice now.
My family was extremely rational, educated background. Nobody really even told us about God or worship or religion. There was none of that. So everyone was just entirely focused on living a very practical, pragmatic, scientific oriented life. And I think I grew up not believing in anything, just believing that one has to be rational about things. One didn't have to really go into astrology or Vastu, but I never disbelieved any of it. And I think with my first guru, who happened to be a Vastu expert, he was also a trained Western style doctor who was working in the United States. So he came with that background, which lent it a certain authenticity. So the fact that here was this person who's had a scientific mindset, but was still talking about Vastu and gemology and all of that, it held a lot of meaning for me. And from there, I think every person who came into my life has taught me something or the other. And the most important thing being that we shouldn't ever confuse spirituality with superstition. Because that's one thing which a lot of people say to me, that you're an educated woman, why are you perpetuating something which appears like superstition to them? You're talking of yantras and mantras, and how is all of that rational? So I think that was the battle for me as well. To overcome all of it, one just has to experience it. There's no other way.
Mm.
And that's what Tantra is all about. It's the lived experience. It's not something you can learn from books. It's not something that your guru can teach you. It's something that you have to find out for yourself.
Mm. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that for those who have listened before, I had a guest and my teacher Tova Olsson speak about Tantra and the Dasa Mahavidyas. And now we're continuing that. And I think for those who haven't listened to that, have heard of Tantra, maybe Tantra is in the Western mind something completely different than it is. And until I studied it academically, I didn't even understand like the history, the literature, like how much it affects like the yoga that we see today. And I don't know if we should start from that, because then it maybe makes sense, like coming into like these 10 goddesses and everything around that as well.
You are absolutely correct when you say that the perception of Tantra, especially in the West, is completely a misrepresentation of what Tantra actually is. Because Tantra is a spiritual tradition which is very ancient. It is non-dogmatic, it's non-religious, and it has nothing to do with sexuality. Maybe a small portion of it covers sexuality, but it's not like what it's made out to be in the West, where it's only about sexuality. So Tantra, in effect, is just a spiritual method to expand your consciousness. And this expansion of consciousness happens through various methods, which we build into a specific framework, keeping our own journey in mind. So that's why sometimes Tantra is called the pathless path, because you make the path as you go along. There was no path which was existing for you to walk on. So as you go along, you make the path and you arrive at the destination, which is freedom, liberation from samsara.
And practically, what is a Tantra practitioner doing? What are the rituals and practices that are part of that, the tools also, like to reach that?
So the toolkit of Tantra essentially has Yantras, which is sacred geometry, and we have mantras, which is the sacredness of sound. We've got mudras, which are the gestures, the hand gestures, and we've got Kundalini Shakti to work with. So these are the 4 tools of Tantra. But eventually, the whole point is that this body itself is the tool with which we access and harness the divine consciousness. Eventually, all of these rituals, all of the tools will follow it. It's like when we start learning how to add, we need our fingers, 2 plus 2. But later, it all becomes mental work. It's the same with Tantra. All the rituals are just to guide you to a particular point, after which it all becomes internal work. And it is said, Antarmukha Samaradhya Bahirmukha Sudurlabha, which means anything you do on the outside is irrelevant. It's only the internal work that ultimately takes you towards realization.
Yeah, that's so true. And you mentioned, so you mentioned yantras, mantras, mudras. and Kundalini Shakti. Maybe we can start with the Yantras as a tool. What do they do? And for those who don't know what it is, maybe just a short description of that. And I mean, you have so many books on these topics, but just giving a taste of what it is.
In every spiritual tradition, we have something called sacred geometry. In Sanatana, in Hinduism, we look at what are called mandalas, and this is also common to Buddhism. So mandalas typically comprise of circles, squares, triangles, and dots. So there are different mandalas for different uses. A yantra is one aspect of a mandala. A yantra uses some geometry to give us a blueprint of something in particular. So for example, if we talk of the Sri Yantra, which is also known as the Sri Chakra Yantra, it is said that this gives you a blueprint of the universal consciousness itself. So that is like the goddess of yantras. And then you also have yantras for each of the deities. Like you have a Kali yantra, you have a Ganesha yantra. So this essentially is a geometric symbol. It stands for the energy of a specific deity.
That's
and
beautiful.
you harness energy using sacred geometry and use it as a tool. It's like a tuning fork to get in tune with the energy that this specific deity stands for. Much like a mantra is also a device with which you connect with that particular deity.
So the yantra is like imprinting a certain frequency through its forms, and when we meditate with it and watch it and maybe even have it, just like when we have a plant or something that emits, everything emits energy, but it's like really specific towards that. I think it's very powerful, and mantras has been so important in my practice for many years. And maybe I think most of the listeners know that mantras are the sacred sounds, and there's so, I mean, the history and vastness of this richness of the Sanskrit language. There's so much, and the more I study, and the yoga lineage that I'm part of, like the mantras that we do there, and now with the Dasa Mahavidyas and working with the different phases of the goddess, it's like so beautiful. And I think mudras, maybe people are not as familiar with, but have seen it probably in a yoga class. What is the purpose? What does it invoke in us when we have certain hand placements, hand gestures?
Right. So I'm glad that you clarified that we are only talking about hand gestures here, whereas mudra can be several things. You could have what are called entire body mudras. Then you could have like the Kechari mudra, which is using your tongue. And then you have the hasta mudras, which are only using your fingertips or your hands, right? Now the hands in Sanatana are also known as the karmendriyas, through which we do our karmas. So that's one of the reasons why this is important. The second reason being that there are the meridians and all the nerve endings. So everything triggers a particular specific impulse, a specific neural reaction. So if you notice in Sanatana, in Hinduism, even the gods and goddesses are shown with mudras. So you have the Abhaya mudra, you've got the Varada mudra, so that's the fearlessness one, the one in which you give blessings. If you look at classical Indian dance, like Bharatanatyam, for example, it's filled with the mudras. They convey a certain meaning. So that is what the mudra does. It makes you aware of how you're using your own body as a tool of Tantra to awaken the Shakti within.
It's beautiful. And it's so interesting to see art from different parts of the world with different mudras as well, and very similar. Maybe it's influenced, but I'm also wondering, for those who listen, they heard Kundalini Shakti, and probably one or both is familiar to them, but maybe we can talk about that as well.
Yes, I see what you mean. There is actually no dichotomy between Kundalini and Shakti. Shakti just means energy, and Kundalini means the energy which lies dormant at the base of our spine. So that is awakened when we reach enlightenment. And the entire practice is to ensure that the energy moves in an upward direction, goes from the base, which also covers our basic needs, survival instinct, and then through the higher realms to reach the Sahasrara chakra, which is when enlightenment becomes a possibility. So the 7 chakras are what we are talking about, what we are referring to as the Kundalini Shakti.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm now, so since my personal journey has started now with the Dasa Mahavidyas, maybe we can get into that, because on this podcast, we talk so much about the divine feminine. That's been one of the most spoken about topics. That's something that I've also very dedicated to, the mother and all of her forms. And I don't know where to start. Where did this originate, the Dasa Mahavidyas, and what does it mean? Maybe for those who haven't heard my previous episode on this.
There's a very interesting backstory to the Dasha Mahavidyas. So first of all, Dasha means 10. Maha means great, and Vidya means knowledge. So we have to look at them not as mere goddesses, but as 10 great wisdoms which are placed before us. Now, coming to the backstory of how they came into existence, the story goes, it's a narrative which has been built over time and which is reflected in the Tantra texts, where Shiva weds Sati. He's married to Sati against her father's wishes. Her father is Daksha. He's very famous in the Indian tradition as a very powerful and angry king. So he's not happy when Sati chooses Shiva as her husband. And so she marries him against the wishes and then goes away to live with Shiva. And then one day Daksha says, I'm going to have a yajna, which is a fire ritual. And he deliberately avoids inviting Shiva, which makes Sati very angry. And she goes up to Shiva and she says, I'm going to attend this yajna. And Shiva says, you should not do that. She gets very angry, and her way of dealing with it is that she wants to block Shiva from moving. So in all the 10 directions, she places one of these manifestations of herself. So you've got the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, west. You've got the 4 ordinal directions, north, east, south, west, and so on. And then you've got up and down. So that's 10 directions. So she places one goddess, one manifestation of herself in each of these directions. So these are the Dasha Mahavidyas, the 10 goddesses who Shiva cannot fend off. He cannot fight them to stop Sati from leaving and going and attending the yajna. So that is the interesting backstory. And then, of course, it goes on into a very beautifully woven narrative later, but we won't get into that. Coming into the 10 goddesses, we start with Kali, because she is what is Adi Parashakti. She is the main one. She is the main manifestation of Sati. And from there, all the others also happen to manifest. So Kali is the primordial goddess. the primordial.
And she's very fierce. Maybe, and that's something that we spoke on Tuva's course about why to start with Kali when she's so. Why are we starting? Maybe for people who don't know who Kali is or that face of the divine is, can you explain that a little bit? And maybe everyone has seen her depiction. It's very, very. She's spread very fast, I think.
She is what is called Ugra in Sanskrit, which means just completely invoking fear in anyone who sees her. Now, to understand what Kali means, we have to look at the word Kala. Kala means time. So she is the one who determines time. First, there is space, which came in with the Big Bang or, with the Nada Brahman and all of that. And then there is time. That's really the only thing that we know, right? Space, time, and causality. So Kali stands for the time element. And with her begins and ends time. And time in Hinduism is cyclical. It's always the three circles of past, present, future, and experienced through waking, sleeping, dreaming state. So that is what Kali stands for. And the reason why she has to be fierce is because unless a mother, any mother, has a degree of ferocity, she will not be able to protect her offspring. So for a goddess of her nature, her fierceness is what makes her protect her devotees more. So the fierceness is needed to counter the evil that exists in Kali Yuga. That's why we see her in that form. And if we go into her iconography, we will see that everything has a significance. Every single aspect of how she is depicted has a meaning.
Yeah, we can go into it maybe because it can be a very scary depiction of her, and then when we understand the stories and why she is in that form, it's also, I mean, that's the suppressed feminine. That's what we don't want to see in women usually in society. We can get into that. I mean, people have seen the tongue and the skulls and the color and everything.
Mm-hmm. So the color, we start with the color. She's either black or blue. Now, the black is to show that she has absorbed all of the evil that exists in the world. And that's why she's Kali. Kali in regular Hindi means someone who's dark skinned.
Mm.
Then you spoke about the tongue. Now, the tongue is strangely misrepresented again. It is not that she is embarrassed. Many people say that it's because of embarrassment that her tongue is out. It's not at all that. It just shows that she is so aggressive. If you remember the story of how she has to fight off Rakta Bija, she has to literally lick off the evil from this world. So that is why the tongue is out, not because she's embarrassed or ashamed of who she is. And then if you look at the skulls that she wears, there are 51 skulls that she wears around her neck. So that is a pointer to the fact that it is with her that Sanskrit originates, because Sanskrit has 51 alphabets. So she literally, every skull stands for one of the alphabets of the Sanskrit language. So she is also where the Vak Shakti comes from. Vak Shakti is the ability to communicate, the ability to speak. So the 51 skulls is a pointer to that. And the fact that she's standing over Shiva, who is in a lying pose, in what is called Pratyalidha, which can either be that you might observe that sometimes she has her right foot forward and sometimes she has her left foot in front. So both of them have a different meaning. right? So you see this again in Bharatanatyam, in the dance form, where it's called, the Alidha, how the foot is placed. But effectively, it's a way of subjugating Shiva. By Shiva, I don't mean subjugating masculinity. It is more about subjugating the aspect of consciousness itself with the feminine energy called Shakti. So Shiva is consciousness, Shakti is energy. So these two have to come together in order for creation to happen. And the smaller things which many people are not aware of, embryos as her earrings, to show that she has a great affinity for innocent devotees who are like children in their hearts. Yes. And she wears a skirt of severed hands. Now, again, just before a couple of minutes ago, we were talking about how the hands are karmendriyas, what we do our karma with. So she is actually liberating us from our karmas. When we see this skirt of hands, that's what it means, that she is liberating us from our karmas.
Yeah. Very powerful, and I think it's beautiful to look at the art and to connect with that and to that essence within us, and it can transform and stir up a lot, which it has for me as well.
Right. I would not say it is art, it became art. Originally was the icon.
Yes.
Right now we look at it as calendar art or as some form, but originally this is what we gave shape to. We gave a name and a form to what is essentially an abstraction, because the human mind cannot grasp abstractions as it can form and name, nama, rupa. So that's why we had to give them all these attributes in order for people to understand it better.
Yeah, definitely. And then when we've worked with Kali, and the next is Tara, right? And
Yes.
if Kali is time, Tara is...
What, according to you, is she?
Well, I haven't. The funny thing is that I've been focusing so much on Kali now, and I think that Tara was it the sound? Is
Tara
it the
is more
vibration?
about the combustibility, the nature, also in a way the dissolution.
Yeah.
Because Tara means star, and what does a star stand for? It's constantly combusting. It's breaking itself up in order to give out light. So that's what Tara is all about. So in a way, that is also an aspect of time, but it's a different way of looking at it. So Tara stands for that element. Again, Tara is common to both Buddhism and Hinduism and has a slightly different interpretation in Buddhism, but not very much worshipped in Hinduism. We don't see her very often. Her iconography may be common, but we don't see much of Tara in the Hindu method, no.
And I think I read a book many, many years ago. It was the different colors of Tara in Buddhism. So it's kind of different. And there, that's the different aspects also.
True. You have the green Tara and you have the blue Tara. These are the two most common ones. And then there's also the white one.
White. Yeah. And red, right?
Right. Where she's more calm. She's more peaceful in the Shweta version. Yes.
Yeah. And then the third is Lalita Tripura Sundari, or? Yes. Because I've understood, am I correct that it can be a different order in different traditions as well? That, yeah.
Yes.
So I want to hear about your,
Yeah. But typically, Lalita is the third. But one important thing is that the number is not hierarchical.
No.
We should never think that because Kali is first and Lalita is third, that Lalita is any less important than Kali. Or because Kamala is 10th, she is any less valuable to the tradition. It is not hierarchical at all. Just because something has to come after the other, but not because anyone is less or more powerful among these energies. But coming back to Lalita, the entire tradition that we follow has her as our Ishta Devata. So Lalita, her full name is Maha Lalita Tripura Sundari, which means Lalita means the playful one. So in her iconography, you see her as this divine, beautiful, gorgeously dressed young woman. And Tripura Sundari means that she is the goddess of the three worlds. So the three worlds can be literally past, present, and future. It could be, in Hinduism, we talk of Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha. So it could be of the three realms, as it were. It could be any of the triads, the triumvirates that exist in Sanatana. Sundari, of course, means beautiful. Now, what is special about her iconography is this is the first time you're encountering a very blissful looking goddess. So you've left behind the fierceness, and here you're coming into the beauty. You're coming into another aspect of life because it's the yin and the yang. So where you have ferocity, you also have beauty. So this is the first goddess where you encounter this benevolence, this very special quality of motherliness. Does she hold in her hands? This is very important because what she holds as the astras or her weapons or whatever you want to call it. For example, in her left hand, she holds a sugarcane bow, right? So that's a bow, like as a part of a bow and an arrow. So why does she hold a sugarcane? Because a sugarcane gives off sweetness even when it is crushed. And a sugarcane is never really straight. It has to be a little bent. So a bow can only operate when it's bent. You cannot let an arrow out of a straight bow. So this is like telling us, don't have an ego which is too straight. Allow your ego to be a little bent, be a little flexible, like the sugarcane bow that she holds, so that your arrows will reach where they're meant to reach. So that's a beautiful message from Lalita. And her arrows are made up of flowers.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Which make up her arrows. So she's got this bag which has the 5 arrows, which are made up of flowers. And the other 2 hands, in one she has a gourd, and one she has a noose. So the gourd is to propel us towards better karma, and the noose is to draw us in when we are going astray, when we're going wrong.
Beautiful. And then the 4th is Bhuvaneshwari.
That's right.
Is she the Mother Earth archetype, or is it nature as well?
Mother Earth, nature, all of the things that we correlate with the planet that we live on. Bhuvana, Bhuva means earth. Ishwari means goddess. So effectively the goddess of earth. So she's associated with everything because in Hindu culture, nature is very, very important. We value, cherish nature. And if you go back to even pre-Vedic times, we were a paganistic culture, which meant that we were worshipping nature. So Bhuvaneshwari comes from that background. So she's worshipped when people want, obviously everything becomes about how we can utilize these energies to manifest material things. So Bhuvaneshwari is worshipped when people want real estate, they want to buy properties, and because there's nothing inherently wrong in seeking material things.
Exactly.
That's one of the things that Bhuvaneshwari's sadhana helps with.
So important. And then we come to Tripura Bhairavi.
Bhairavi, yes.
Yes. And is Bhairavi the no, maybe I'm confusing. I was thinking about this crone archetype of no, it's
No,
Dhumawati.
that is Dhumawati, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
Bhairavi, yeah.
I think the most common mistake people make is they think of Bhairavi as the consort of Bhairava, which is Shiva, one form of Shiva, a very
Mm.
aggressive form of. Now, we have to make it very clear that none of these goddesses are consorts of any gods. They're all standalone energies. They do not have a consort and they do not have children. They do not have offspring. Anyone saying otherwise, if they read the Tantra texts, they will know that those were latter day additions brought in by the patriarchy to make these energies not look as aggressive as they are, to make it look as if they are consorts of a powerful god. That's what gives them the power. No, they have their own power. They draw their own energies. They do not need a consort. They do not need offspring to make them valid.
Mm.
So Bhairavi is, again, we come back to that Ugra form, to the ferocity, the fierceness, which a woman needs in a world where patriarchy reigns. And I think all the Dasa Mahavidyas put out this message that a woman will come into her own only when she embraces the fierceness that she is capable of.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. And then we have Chinamasta, also
Another
very
interesting uh, deity, if I may say so, because her message is a very compelling one. She's what is known as the self-decapitating goddess. She cuts her own neck simply because her two friends are troubling her, saying, "We are hungry, we are hungry." So when she cuts her neck, the blood flows in three directions, three fountains, as it were. So two are consumed by the two friends, and the third is consumed by herself. So this could be a reference to the central one is the Sushumna Nadi, and the other two are Ida and Pingala Nadis. And it is a reference to the fact that we have to consume our own ego before we can attain liberation. That is the story of Chinnamasta. And also that she does all of this when she's on top of a couple who are copulating, which means that we have to overcome our sexual desires if we want. And sexual desires means all of the physical longings, whether it be for food or for drink or for copulation. We have to overcome all of these desires in order to ascend to higher realms of spiritual evolution.
also very interesting iconography when we look at that.
Yes.
Not as I think not as widespread in the West. I had never seen that depiction. Very interesting. And and then comes Dhumawati, and that is the elder wise woman, right?
Yes. We don't know whether she was wise or not, but it is a reality. If you notice in India, in Varanasi, for example, a lot of widows are just brought there and left behind. There is no future for them. In India, a woman, if she loses her husband, becomes a widow, she is considered, I think it's a destiny worse than death for a woman who loses her husband. So I think with Dhumawati, they were trying to make a point, the Tantric writers, that a woman, when she is seen at her worst, is also capable of spiritual practices which will help her move ahead. So that's why we see Dhumawati, she is ugly, she is old, she is shown as sitting on a chariot in a cremation ground. And it's a broken chariot, a chariot which cannot move. She can't go anywhere. And possibly she's been thrown out of the house, nobody wants her. But she is seen holding a winnow, right? It's like a little tool from which the wheat is separated from the chaff. So she has that discernment where she can separate the truth from the illusion. So that is what Dhumawati stands for. That discernment, what is called viveka, that everyone has to acquire in this life. And nothing should stop them. No amount of bad luck can stop someone who's on the spiritual path. You could be ugly, distorted, but if you want to pursue spirituality, it doesn't matter really how you look, where you're coming from, what you're doing, none of that matters.
Beautiful. Thank you. And how about Bagalamukhi?
Bagalamukhi is, I think, an ode to the fact that control your tongue first. Because the tongue is also an organ of karma. And more karma accrues from the activity of the tongue than any other action. Because we can hurt more deeply with the tongue than with our hands or with a kick from our leg. Because that's the power of vak, of the spoken word, the uttered word. And this is what Bagalamukhi stands for. And if you observe what she is doing in her iconography, she's holding the tongue of someone, of an asura, I'm assuming, some, like a evil being. And she's paralyzing him by holding his tongue. That's called stambhana. The paralysis is called stambhana. So they call upon her energy when this paralysis of the enemy is required, while also giving us the lesson that our tongues need to be controlled. And we need to call upon her to help us reel in our tongue.
Yeah, so true. And so important. And
yes, I think, Shireen, I'm not trying to give you the average, regular, everyday meaning that are associated with all these Dasa Mahavidyas, because that everyone knows. I think we have to look at something which is over and beyond what is about.
Yes. And it's through the stories and I think that's like the power of these traditions. So many stories that integrate in a very deep way, and throughout life it can mean so many different things throughout our experiences. And I see that, because if I listen to one of the stories today and when I listened to it a year ago, it means so different things. That's like the power of it. So I love the way you're presenting them. And Matangi is the 9th, so we're coming to the end of the Dasa Mahavidyas. Matangi
is the tantric version of the sort of Vedic goddess of Saraswati, right? So Saraswati is the goddess of knowledge. She has everything to do with the arts. And in Hinduism, knowledge is foremost, over and above everything else. Because knowledge is the one thing that can take us to liberation. So we talk of tamasoma jyotirgamaya, which means moving from darkness to light. That means moving from ignorance to knowledge. And that's why Saraswati is so, so, so important. And in Matangi, we have the tantric version of Saraswati. She's seen playing a veena. And it's said that she plays it, it's an instrument. It's much like a guitar, but far more beautiful in its effect. And she's set to play the veena, and she holds a book and a rosary, which are all about furthering our own knowledge and going from ignorance to knowledge.
Beautiful. And then we have the final Kamala. And she's also this more, not the Ugra version, right? More the beautiful, like, yeah.
Right. So Kamalatmika, that's the name, if we have to give her that from the Tantric version. She is the Tantric version of Lakshmi, of abundance. So you start with Kali, which is utmost fierceness, and then you end with Kamalatmika, which is utterly the opposite. Just complete light, complete bliss, complete abundance and joy. So you've completed the circle in a way, like the circle of life itself. So you've gone from darkness, you've seen some mild goddesses, you've seen some more fierce goddesses, and then finally you converge in Kamala, which brings everything which is beautiful to the fore. And Kamala means lotus. So she has the heart, the soul of a lotus. Kamalatmika means the one who has the lotus as her soul. And what does the lotus stand for? Complete beauty in spite of just lying in muck. It might be mud, but the beauty of the lotus is exemplified by the fact that it grows in the midst of these surroundings. So that is Kamalatmika for you.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And you have a book on the Dasa Mahavidyas, but most, I think one of the most important questions now is for those who feel like they want to work with these different phases of the goddess, and what does that mean, and how, and also what are you offering to support and to, besides the book, of course?
I don't really teach, like I don't have courses and things like that. But if people want more insight about any way in which they can pursue a spiritual practice, then they can book a one-on-one session with me. And the thing is that all of these aspects that we are talking about can't really be taught overnight. It's a long process. So one can just guide you to tell you what you can learn, how you can pursue your practice, but the work has to come from you, from the individual who is seeking the practice. So I will only act as the guide to show you your path. And then you have to go and pursue the path on your own.
Definitely. And how about, lastly, these traditions of initiations and the transmission of the mantras and all of this? How do you see that?
I believe, particularly in the Sri Vidya tradition, most of Tantra is very secretive. And it is for a reason. It's because Tantra is powerful when practiced correctly. And if this information falls into the wrong hands, it could be problematic. So for that reason, there is a very strict guru-disciple relationship. And the guru teaches the disciple as one goes along on the path. Now, I believe that with Sri Vidya, for example, to a certain point, you can do self-study. But after a certain point, say a year of study, you will need a guru to give you the diksha of the higher mantras. For as long as the mantras are prasiddha mantras, which are common to all, which can be shared on email or via a podcast, that's fine. But that can only be for a year or so. After that, it has to be a one-on-one with the guru, one-on-one with someone who will initiate you into it, simply because you need to know who it is that you're initiating. It is important, it's imperative that you see them, you trust them with this knowledge which they're going to carry forward. So initiation becomes very necessary at that point. So initially when they're practicing, it's just that. It's about them practicing and getting ready for the initiation, which is about a year long. And then after that, they have to connect with the guru and get initiation for the mantras. And it becomes more esoteric after that. It's not just about chanting a mantra 108 times. There are so many other rules which one cannot discuss in open. So, and it has to be specific to the person that one is giving the diksha to. There are so many things. Is it a man? Is it a woman? What age group are they in? What is their previous proclivity towards spirituality? Many, many, many aspects which need to be taken into consideration, which only the guru can do.
Yes, that makes sense. And I will link to your website and Instagram, and I feel like there is so much more that I wanted to cover today, but I think we will definitely connect again for another podcast. Is there anything final that we haven't touched on that you want to share right now?
I would love to share a beautiful blessing with everyone who's listening. It's from the Rig Veda. And let me chant it for you. Om Shrivarchasvamayushyamarogyama Vidhachobhamanam Mahiyate Dhanyam Dhanam Pashum Bahuputra Labham Shatasamvatsaram Dirghamayu. Shri Matre Namaha.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have listened to you today. I'm sure everyone is inspired, and I just want to thank you for taking your time, and I can't wait to connect more. Thank you so much, Vinita.
Thank you, Shireen. It was my pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. Wishing you an abundance of all things enriching.
Thank you, and you.